Okay, gang, welcome back to the channel. Sonically, if you're digging what's happening, at the 335 running into a Nobles ODR1, into a Univerb, into a Princeton in the closet with the Royer 121 on it. I'll put the affiliate links to that down in the description, so it's one of the best ways you can help out the channel is just click on those links. If you purchase something, Sweetwater gives me a small cut. So here's the question. Could AI replace what I just played on that intro right there with me noodling around and just improvising something? It could absolutely replace it and probably beat it. And give it 3 to 5 years, and it'll probably also have the little nuance of everything here dialed in as well. If you fed it or trained it with 4 hours of my Spotify session work playlist, it would probably learn what I do, learn the nuances of my playing, learn my tendencies, generally how I shape a solo, analyze all that, and be able to recreate what I do probably better than I can do it myself. And that's pretty crazy, right? And here's the question, though, is that going to take all my work? And I think the answer to that's no. And that's because this entire business is built on relationships. People that are hiring me to play guitar on their record are not hiring me just to have the end result of having guitar, have the stems in their DAW. That's just not why they're hiring me. Most people that are making music are also paying for the experience of making music. They enjoy making music. It's, their biggest passion in life. They love it more than anything outside of their family most of the time. And they're obsessed with it, and they love and appreciate the process of making it. An analogy I used, I was at a donut shop the other day with somebody. They asked me about what I think about the AI thing. I think they watched one of Rick Beato's videos. And I said, to me, it's kind of like you can snap your fingers, and somebody's going to hand you a flawlessly cooked steak, and it's free or super cheap. But the condition is you have to eat it in a 10 by 10 square room with all the walls painted white and no furniture in it by yourself. But it's free. Or you can pay for that steak. Somebody hands you a flawlessly cooked steak, lays it down on your table, and you're in a corner booth, and it's a super vibey, dimly lit room with your best friends and your family all around you. And you get to eat that steak and talk about it with them and enjoy the experience of dining. Me and most of the people I know would rather pay for that steak in that corner booth than sit in a room by ourselves and just snap our fingers and have it for free. I know it sounds crazy, but people love working for things. People love the process of putting time and effort and their heart and soul into something and then having a finished product at the end that they can tangibly hold or listen to in our case. And that's a really cool thing. And I think you're not going to be able to get that out of people. I think it's just a thing that's inherently inside of us. And there's always going to be that smaller category of people that want to snap your fingers, have the instant result right away. And typically that's not the kind of client that I really enjoy working with anyways. And so I'm not, losing sleep over potentially losing that smaller portion of my business if AI does take it, and it will. But I'm fine with it. So I feel like our subconscious mind is more in tune sometimes than our conscious mind is. And I can't remember this guy's name, but this video popped up in my feed a while back, and it was a guy talking about how our ears are analog and we hear an analog or biologically inclined to gravitate towards analog because, 100 million years of evolution isn't going to be overridden by 30 years of digital conditioning. And I butchered that, and probably even messed up the message. That's kind of the gist of it. And I believe that. And I think he's onto something there. And the reason I think he's onto something with that is because I know when I'm watching a film, for example, and I'm listening to the music that's going on, I can tell that the majority of the music being made in this film throughout the whole movie, for the most part, is pretty much programmed and composed by one person in a bedroom using a lot of software instruments. And it's like incredibly well done, and it's super realistic. And most people wouldn't even know it, but I can just hear it because I live in this world all the time. And I'm sitting there listening to it, and I get wore out on it after a while. I'm like, okay, I can tell that I get it, call it continuity or whatever, but it's starting to get stale by, an hour into it. And somebody that's not a musician, like my wife, might not notice that. But something strange happens if they throw like a 70s song in there, something that was recorded back in the day on analog tape. All of a sudden, it hits everybody differently. And my wife noticed it too, and it hits me like a freight train. I'm like, finally, something real. And I don't think it's the familiar factor. I really think that it's actual musicians in a room moving air into microphones going to analog tape. I think there's something biologically inside of us that latches onto that. It's evolutionary or something. I don't understand. I wish I could explain it better. I'm sure there's somebody out there that's a brilliant mind that might be able to explain my madness in the comments. So depending on what you think about this stuff, throw something in the comments. Let me know what you think. I do appreciate you guys hanging out here, listening to me ramble about this stuff. This is just all my opinions. I don't know what I'm talking about, but I don't know. Hopefully you guys find it helpful so far. And another thing I want to mention too is, pros are constantly chasing that last 1% to 3%. And we're looking for that little finite thing that's at the very end. And it's really hard to get that thing. Digital and AI is not there yet. It'll get really close, but I don't know if it's ever going to be able to quite get in that final 1%. And those 1% are important. And, just for example, like right here, you can't see in the camera, but I have an aux box sitting right here, which if you're not a guitar player, what that is it's a speaker emulation. So I plug an amplifier into that. It emulates a cabinet in a room basically with a microphone on it. And it's amazing. It sounds incredible. And in the other room, I have an actual cabinet with a real microphone on it. That's what you're hearing at the beginning of the video. And that's what I try to use every time if I can. And that's a 1% difference maybe, right? It might be just 1 to 3% better in there with that real Royer 121 on it. And that 1 to 3% in a mix, on one guitar layer might not be that big of a deal. But when you start stacking 5 guitar layers out, that little thing like this multiplies 5 times, that starts to become a noticeable difference. And if you're a pro musician and you take this seriously, we're constantly trying to address that final, like 1 to 3%. And the more things we can do to push us into that level of excellence that we're constantly striving to achieve, I think that's better. And so for me, I've tried to start, gearing the studio away from as much digital as I can. I'm trying to do as much outboard gear as I can with real analog goodness that's going, and it gets turned into 1 to 0s here eventually anyways. But I think if you can try to capture it at least in analog, I think it's going to be a little bit more palatable for people long term. People aren't paying me and my colleagues to get within 5% of what they want. They want exactly, what they want if they're paying for a service and they're paying for a human to do it. They want it to be real, and real sells. And for those of you guys out there that think, it's never going to get as good as a human, it absolutely will. And I had similar thoughts. I thought, okay, it's not going to be able to get some of the nuance of the parts and how we think and all that, but it absolutely does. And the reason I think that now is because I got sent guitars 2 weeks ago to replace, and I couldn't tell that they were programmed until I listened to the individual isolated stems, and I was like, okay, I can hear a little bit of nuance and vibrato and bends that doesn't quite sound like a human hand. But in the past, when I would get stuff like literally a month ago, somebody would send me a track to replace the guitars on, and I could tell that it was like some kind of programmed acoustic or something. It just feels sterile, and the squeaks aren't in the right places and things like that, that just we pick up on that make it sound natural. This sounded natural. It was so good. It was dead on. And what's more shocking is the parts themselves were flawless. It was like the most perfect balance of they were leaving space on the left and right. There was like even a slight bump on the choruses with intensity that I know it sounds crazy, but like it really picked up on that too. And even its pocket and its time feel shifted how a human would. So like because I zoomed in and looked at the grid, and like even into some of the sections, it was a little bit ahead of the beat like a natural human would be going into a chorus, just because they're like trying to, help build that energy into it. Sometimes people get a little bit ahead right there. And the AI actually did that, which is crazy. And the nuance that I picked up, though, was some of the bends and vibratos when I listened to the isolated stems weren't quite right like a human hand would do it. And sonically, I could tell that it sounds like a guitar player that didn't quite know how to get their sound dialed in right, or that had too much processing on it by somebody that didn't know how to mix guitars. But the part itself was brilliant, and I had trouble like beating the solo. They were like, okay, try to beat the solo basically. I could tell they didn't ask that, but I could tell that's what they were wanting. And the part itself was great because I transcribed it because I'm like, okay, let's see if this is even playable. And it is. I played it. I learned it and played it. And I was like blown away. I'm like, okay, could be potentially be a problem. And then the more I thought about it, that's why I'm bringing up the topics I'm bringing up today. It's like, people are still going to want to talk about this stuff. That person didn't want to just snap his fingers and have the perfect guitar part right there. He wants to talk about it and enjoy and engage in the creative process of working with another human being. And humans crave humans. I think that's why people constantly want friends and purpose, and they feel lonely and stuff. Is like, if you want to make somebody go crazy, make them spend 3 weeks by themselves working in a DAW. People have to have people around them or they start to lose their minds. I'm doing a lot of work in isolation here in my own studio. I'm doing 40 to 60 tracks a month here, and that's a lot of music. I did 16 tracks this week at my house, and between Monday and Friday I did 16. That's a lot of time charting out songs, determining what a client wants, and just staring at a computer screen, bounce between acoustic and electric here in this one room. And it's easy to lose your mind doing that if I wasn't able to also get on the phone with these people or pull them up on Zoom or FaceTime and do some of these sessions with them. I would go crazy. I know it just drains most human beings unless there's something superhuman about you. And so that's why I'm not too concerned about the AI thing. I think people will still want to make music with other people. I'm sorry I sound like a broken record repeating myself on this now. I'm just trying to comfort my own self. And the other topic with AI and music everybody likes talking about is on Spotify, and these streaming sites now, how they're having singers that didn't actually sing the song. They're just basically taking their voice with AI and having them sing other genres or something like that. And that's a novelty thing that I think is going to go away. Eventually people are going to get bored of that or tired of it. But if it doesn't, that's fine. I mean, there's something for everybody, and times change and business changes and you have to adapt or you sink. And I think you just got to stay a little ahead of the curve on things. If you're a producer, I feel like AI is going to be a great tool because, it speeds up the process in your workflow and it can solve a lot of problems for you, and it's just going to get smarter and better. But if you're in content creation, I think AI is going to be a very good thing for your bottom line. If you are specialized in one little thing, I think it's going to be a little more difficult to make it. I think you have to wear multiple hats and try to stay 3 or 4 steps ahead of everybody and just be a little smarter moving forward as AI adapts and gets better and smarter and gets harder to compete with. I don't think you can compete with it. I think you have to work with it. I think that's kind of the big takeaway here is, if you're making content, use AI to your advantage and then take that extra time that it's saving you and do something with that time that also makes you money to make up for the fact that AI might also be taking away from other aspects of your income. I don't know if that makes sense the way I said it or not, but that's kind of how I see it. AI is going to force people to do something kind of crushing creative. It's going to open up different doors, I think, as well. Human beings, for the most part, if you give them more tools, they're going to figure out ways to be creative with them. And this is just potentially an amazing tool we can use. So for me personally, I think I'm going to try to get on board with the AI thing, use it to my advantage, stay ahead of the curve. And sonically, I'm going to double down on analog gear. So I'm trying to replace all this digital stuff with as much analog as I can. Take the aux box, throw it in the trash, and just only use that Royer in there on that old Princeton and kind of roll with that. We'll see how it goes. And if any of you guys need guitar tracks, I do a bunch of recording here at my house. Just reach out to me through my website. I also do guitar lessons on there. The website's called Nashville Tracking. It has guitar lessons, guitar overdubs, and then I also have full-scale production. And my whole team is using all real microphones and the real deal. If we send you drum tracks through the website, it's going to be Steve Brewster lighting it up on an amazing kit that's perfectly in tune with great mics and a great sounding room. And you're going to get all of his heart and passion on that track. And that's a cool thing. So same thing for the guitars, guys. I'm going to try to give you all I got if you guys hire me to play on this. And because we're fighting AI now, right? I don't think we're fighting. I think we got to work with it. But I appreciate you guys spending some time here. Please like and subscribe. And let me know what you think in the comments. This is just my thoughts. And I don't know anything. I'm just rambling. Appreciate you guys. Thanks.